15. And with me, I have Lieutenant Mike Daly from Monroe Township in New Jersey. Mike, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Chief.
So you're a lieutenant. You said your department's pretty small, which is kind of cool. You know, we get all kinds of, we've had Chicago, we've had New York, and now we have is that a volunteer department, Mike?
No, we are career.
It's a career department, huh? That's very cool. That's a paid department. So a nice little small department. So just tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a lieutenant, and you said that there's no captain. So the next rank is, I guess, chief.
Yeah, pretty much. We're a small department located in Central Jersey. My station turns about 1,800 runs a year. We have a population in town just over 44,000 people. Median adult age is around 58, so we have a lot of adult community. And we have the risks that go along with that. When I'm not in a firehouse, I am an adjunct professor at two different colleges in New Jersey as well. And I teach at two of the county fire academies in New Jersey as well. And for the last 20 years, I've been with New Jersey Task Force 1 as a rescue officer.
Nice. So Mike, so how long have you been on the fire department in total?
Total service, volunteer and career time, 34 years.
Wow, so it's just about the same as I got. So I would say, as you know, like we call the show the invisible hand on the fire ground, and I do this with all the guests. I want it to be totally unscripted, so I think you have a little bit of a sense of what we're going to be talking about. And it's not really a show about firematics. It's more about things that happen on the fire ground. So I'm sure in your 34 years, you've had to come across a few things that you have to just shake your head and say, what was that all about?
Oh, yeah. I think everybody that spends any time in this line of work, career or volunteer, is probably going to have these moments that are the unexplained.
Yeah. You know, I'm noticing the more I'm doing this now and the more I'm talking to other firefighters, stories are popping into my head that I never even thought about. How, like, I just can't explain what happened, like how we got out of it, you know, how that happened. I wasn't supposed to be working. You know, just ad infinitum. It's just all these different various reasons for things not going south. So with that, and with respect to that, just a little bit about your background. I like to talk about my faith. I am a very devout Catholic, or so to speak. I'm a practicing Catholic. I don't know if I'm devout, but I'm practicing. And I do believe that I believe that there's no way that we could do this job successfully without any kind of help from above. And I've just seen too many coincidences on the fire ground where things should have gone south and they haven't. And I think for me, this reinforces my faith. How do you feel about that, Mike? With your faith, do you feel that? I feel that this is God's work that we do in the fire service.
I think anybody that walks into this career, you understand that there is always a hand on your shoulder that's keeping you straight and narrow. I don't think you'd be able to do this without that assistance, without that belief. There's just too many opportunities for things to go sideways that we can't control. That I believe there's assistance from above that keeps us on an even keel. I don't know how we would be able to do this job without it, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah. And I think the older I get, the more I'm realizing that, because I think when I was younger, you know, I would say that I was a practicing Catholic. I mean, I don't know if I could say my faith was always kind of strong, you know, but I mean, it wasn't no sooner I was in a firehouse a week or two that I was in my first, let's say, near-death experience, right? We were caught in a flashover, and just all the stars just lined up. The right guy was working, you know, everything just lined up, even despite the fact that a lot of things went wrong, we survived the flashover, you know. And then it wasn't soon after that I was involved in another flashover on Christmas. And so now I got the firehouse in September of '86. By December, I've already been in 2 flashovers. And I don't know how I survived them. And we didn't even have the proper gear back then. We had just the three-quarter boots and the coat that came, you know, you had that gap between the top of your boots and the bottom of your coat. We had no hoods. We had, you know, the coat didn't even really go up around your collar, you know, and we didn't even have the, you know, the hoods, right? So anyway, we survived, and I just kind of shook it off, like, wow, what was that all about? And I look back much older now, I'm saying, yeah, there was somebody watching out for us that day.
I would agree. I think with maturity comes a more recognition of faith. I think the younger we are, the more ambitious we feel, and I think the more in control we feel. There's and I entered the fire service in '86, and again, 3/4 coat, helmet, no hood. Well, no, we got a hood. The old 2A air packs where you had the demand breathing, pull-up boots, and don't use your air kid. We got to get those filled. I can remember going through recruit school, and half of the school we didn't even wear a pack. It was all flammable liquid and gas, and the instructor position was, what do you need an air pack for? You're not in a building. So amazing how we were able to get away with some of the things that we did. But yeah, I had an experience, I think, when I first became an officer in the local volunteer company. I was actually thrust into the position as nobody else wanted it. And it was one of those, hey, why doesn't Mike do it? And I was like, okay. And it was one of my first fires where I had a realization of well, somebody got me out of that pickle. And I think it kind of pointed me in two directions. One was, I really don't know as much as I think I do. And secondly, I like to think that I have two people upstairs looking out for me, and one of them is my mom. And I think at that point that day, I think that was an awakening, if you will, from a higher power that said, you know what, you better do something about this before you get yourself in a jam. So we had a fire in a 2-story wood frame with pitch, and I was on the second line coming into the building, and I had a crew with me, and I was young and I was ambitious, and I was gonna show everybody how smart I was, or how tough I was, or how brave I was, or whatever. And there was a rocket fire in the attic, and we made the push, and it was a walk up steps into an attic, and I remember the fire was significant coming down the stairs as I watched the top of the door fail, and the top of the door had burned away. It was a single hollow door in an attic, and you'd find in any residence. And we're making a push up the stairs, and I'm saying to myself, we got this, we got this, we got this. And something just said, you know what? This doesn't feel right. I mean, we're putting this out, and I'm taking a ton of heat, and I'm saying, you know, the more water we're putting on this, the worse this is getting. Something's not right. Something's not right. This doesn't make sense. Everything in school I was taught about throwing water on fire, this just doesn't make sense. We're putting ourselves in a bad spot here. I don't know what it was. I really don't know why I had that feeling. You know, I thought there was a fire below me. I go downstairs real quick just to take the second floor. Second floor's clean, you know, and I'm like, you know what, guys, come on, we're out. No, we got this. No. And I am a green lieutenant at this point, you know, company officer in a volunteer department in the town I grew up in. As you know what, no, something doesn't look right. It just isn't right. And I brought them out through a debate, and we're debating this as we're coming down the stairs. And I come out and I turn around, and the whole roof from the eaves up is on fire on the outside. And probably 30 seconds after we walked out this door, the roof collapsed. And this is my first experience with knee walls, which I had no idea what a knee wall was up until that day. But something just did not sit with me. And that was the moment I said, you know what? As smart as I think I am, and I think when we first get promoted or voted into a position or start to wear horns or collar brass, I think there is a misconception of how smart we really are when we first start. We all have a humbling moment, and that was mine. But I can't to this day tell you why I made that decision. Something said, this doesn't work. No, this isn't working. You got to go. You got to go. You got to go. It wasn't fear. It wasn't anxiety. It wasn't doubt of my abilities initially, but something just said, this is not sitting right. This isn't working right. It's not, you got to go, you got to go, you got to go. And I'm sure you've been in enough fires, Chief, where, you know, you've said, oh, I can't believe we pulled out of this fire. Oh, we had this, or we had this fire. We just needed 2 more minutes. But something just told me that day, nope, this isn't going to end well. And out we came.
That is exactly what I'm talking about. That invisible hand on the fire ground. I can't even tell you now how many times I've heard that same story where the guest I'm speaking to says, I have no idea why I did what I did, but it didn't feel right.
Nope.
And we backed out, and next thing you know, it collapsed. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine, Joe Berry. He was the lieutenant in 42 truck. And it's actually how this whole podcast thing started, because I was on a drive to Florida, and my mom, I didn't have radio in the car, but my mom listens to these podcasts, you know, like Coast to Coast or whatever it is, you know, and they're very kind of spiritual. And so I'm driving from the auto train down to her house to bring the car down, and I'm listening to these podcasts, you know, and I said, you know, now I'm nothing else to do. I called Joe. I haven't spoken to Joe in a while, and really dynamite truck officer in 42 truck. And I don't know how it came up, but we were talking about a fire that I had. And I said, Joe, I said, I can't explain this fire I had. It was one of my last fires as a captain, right? It was talk about just all these coincidences happening, right? So we got relocated, you know, we call it relocation when we have to cover another house up to the north part of the Bronx. And we knew we had these 3 buildings that were vacant, that were they were just ready to go. We had a fire there probably the week before. It wasn't that much of a fire. Timmy Klett was working. He was an 88 engine. Timmy was first due, I was second due, and we kind of fought over this one box. But anyway, this particular day tour, we go up to relocate to this other firehouse, and they were at like some know-nothing fire, but they have to cover that firehouse. So I don't know what possessed me to do this, but normally we just take the highway to get back very quickly. And I told my chauffeur, I said, do me a favor, Jay, let's just take the avenue back, because, you know, I don't want to get stuck on the highway, just whatever reason it was. And sure enough, we get on this avenue, this major artery that goes north-south in the Bronx. And no sooner did we get out of the firehouse, we're about maybe a mile into our trip back to the firehouse, and I hear the dispatchers get on the radio, and they're calling 88 engine, Timmy's working, and they're calling the 18th Battalion, hey, we're loading up your box, we're getting numerous calls, we got a report of a house fire. And I was like, crap, I knew exactly where it was. And now I could see in the distance, I could see the column. It was just like this immense black column, you know, off in the distance. And I got on the radio and I called them. I said, you know, engine 46 to the Bronx. I said, you know, we're available, even though we weren't really available. We were kind of a little bit far. And they said, yep, 46, take it in. We're loading it up. And then Timmy gets on scene. He transferred his second alarm on arrival. House is going full top to bottom. There's actually a video of the fire on YouTube. It was 180th Street and Washington Avenue. It's amazing. They just did an amazing job. They hit it with the deck gun. They stretched a line. And by the time I got there, it was already a second alarm. The chief looks at me, he says, Danny, he says, just pick a building, right? So I picked this one building, right? And I had my crew with me. I told them to wait at the bottom of the stairs with the line. I'm going to go in and see where the fire is, right? Because we didn't even have enough truck companies. And this is what I remember. I remember going up the stairs. I got to the top of the stairs on the second floor. I look out the window and all I could see is orange, right? There's fire all outside the window. There's fire in the bathroom, and I just closed the door. And this is where I should have stopped, turned around, went downstairs, got the hose line, and went back in. But what do? I'm like, well, let me just go up to the top of the stairs. Let me go to the 3rd floor, just see if there's any fire up there. I get to the top of the stairs, and I'm immediately on my belly because it's so hot. And next thing you know, no sooner did I get up there that I heard this boom, and immediately my life just flashed before my eyes. I said, this is it. You blew it. You finally did it. After all these years, you finally did it. And I was waiting for the flash, right? Because I had been in these spots before. And it just, at that same time, I dove down the stairs. And then, I don't know, I landed on somebody else. And then I dove down the second set of stairs. One guy broke his arm, and the whole thing was on fire, and I don't know what to make of it. So I called Joe, and I'm like, Joe, what do you think? I still can't get my head around what happened. And then he talked about the knee walls. And he says he had the same particular job on Intervale Avenue, and they were on the top floor, got very, very hot. And next thing you know, boom, it flashed, and they dove down the stairs. So you probably don't realize it, but you probably picked up on the heat. I guess I could only imagine if it was in the knee walls. But, that fire, if I had been in my firehouse, all these things, different things that would have happened, I wouldn't have been in that spot. And I happened to be in that spot, and yet I still survived. And that you talk about PTSD. I've been talking with Andy, and he got me to talk about a story that I didn't want to talk about. And this is another one of those fires that, like, I sweat, my heart gets fast when I speak about it, because I don't understand how I was waiting for that fireball and it didn't come. It just, maybe I missed it. Maybe when I dove down the stairs, I missed the fireball, like some kind of, Indiana Jones movie where you just, or like Die Hard, where you see like these movies where they have these unrealistic people jumping out of, fire buildings and stuff like that. But that happened to me. And I did the opposite though. I didn't go with my gut. I went against what I should have done. And I can't believe that I'm still here, because by all rights, I should not have survived that, and I guess God had other plans, right?
Absolutely. I like to tell people, we got lucky at this, or, luck is the crossroads between preparation and opportunity. The reality of it is you get put in a position to do some good, then you do it. But there are things that just go unexplained. And it's not just, and I know we talk about things that we've experienced, but our experiences even with the public and how, that invisible hand has even kept people safe or not. And, we had a couple of incidents that, for the life of me, I can't understand how they ended up the way they did. And we had I think it was about two years ago, a little over 2 years ago, we had got called to a neighboring town. We do a lot of heavy rescue. We're open confined space extrication teams in the area, so we do a lot of automatic aid. And I got called to this incident where this guy went 75 feet off the woods in a box truck and wound up putting a tree right through the cab of his vehicle. And they were not prepared to be able to handle an incident of this kind of significance. So we wound up getting called to this. And I looked at this thing walking in. We're cutting trees down on the way in just to be able to get to the truck to tell you how bad this guy's buried in this thing. And I'm saying to myself, there's no way. There's just no way. I'm thinking, cancel the bird. This guy's, this is going to be this guy's alive. There's a medic in the rig trying to stop bleeding in his left femoral artery, and we're bringing everything in with us, just thinking for the worst. And I don't know, there comes and maybe from a command standpoint, this is a bit more of a story, because I don't know if you've ever experienced this from a command standpoint, but I walked into this thing as the operations guy in charge to be able to get this guy out. They were like, all right, we called it. It was one of those incidents where my rescue is in the same house with my engine. So, and we staff both. So we roll up together, and the seas parted for us. There's no other way to describe this scene. Like, we came rolling into this road, and they're like, oh, they're here. They're going to solve this. Let's get out of the way. And that's kind of how the road opened for us. It was like, he's in there. That's where they pointed. Like, okay. We logged up. We went. And I'm thinking, oh, this is probably not going to bode well. And I remember looking at this incident And Chief, I got to tell you, I've been cutting cars, I've been cutting trucks. I was a mechanic, so I know my way around vehicles. I mean, I looked at this thing, and probably in the 25 years I've been doing extrication, if not one of the top 3 extrications I've ever been on. And this guy was still alive. And there was just a feeling of serenity that came over me. I don't know how else to describe it. It was just almost like you take that deep breath, and it's like everything's like this is just going to flow. And I mean, decisions were just bang, this, that, move that, hook that chain there, take that ram, make that cut. We're going to roll that dash. We're going to spin. We're going to actually curl this dash. We're going to do this. We're going to lower that step. And I mean, it's just, I don't know how to explain it. I honestly don't, because when you think of some of the incidents that you've run in the first few minutes where we are reactive on an incident, where the magnitude is driving the decisions that we make. And I've been in many positions where that magnitude drives your adrenaline up to a point where you have that reactive decision-making mode. This was completely the opposite. As crazy as this incident was, and I'm telling you, it was probably one of the most significant incidents I've ever been on, as far as rescue. I don't know. It was just a calming kind of guiding feeling. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to make this. We're going to cut there. We're going to roll that. We're going to pull that. We're going to do this. In 52 minutes, we had this guy out. He wound up spending 14 days in an induced coma in the trauma center they flew him to, and he wound up walking out. I remember walking away from that incident. I told everybody, just leave the equipment, just walk away. And we walked away, and we sat down on a bumper, and we just looked at each other. And at first we were like, I can't believe that happened that way it did. I can't believe I can't believe we rolled him out of here alive. I can't believe it went the way it did, because out of all visual clues when we first showed up, no way, absolutely no way. But something just, I don't know, just came over me.
Yeah, I get that, Mike. You just touched on something I never even thought of before. Is that I've been a chief now for 13 years, and maybe I used to act battalion chief a good maybe 4 years before that. So I've been in command of fires for 17 years, let's say, and I never thought about that. But I get what you're talking about with that feeling of, let's say, calmness when there's like total chaos, because maybe it's just all the stuff that I experienced prior to that as a fireman, as a lieutenant, as a captain. But as a battalion chief, sometimes I could see the crazy stuff going on, and inside I feel very calm.
I got to think that there's something more to it than that, because there's times where I've been, where things should not have gone the way they have, and I think that there's clues, if you will, from that invisible hand afterwards that kind of help you resolve these things. You talked about PTSD, and I really feel that is a significant, and I felt that was the way years ago, that we should have been focusing on our members. I mean, we had a real bad accident on a turnpike. We cover about 5 miles of the New Jersey Turnpike. And we had a 7-year-old girl get thrown from a car, ejected, the car landed on her. I mean, it was bad. I mean, we worked her to the chopper. I remember, and it was just one of those where the clues in front of me were just phenomenal. I mean, if you've ever been on the New Jersey Turnpike, closing the New Jersey Turnpike in any direction is an act of Congress. I closed it twice in my career, and this was one of them. I held the entire southbound lane right in front of 8A closed because I had to land a chopper for this girl. And right at the end of the traffic, right in front of this incident, was a funeral procession with a picture on the flower car that could have been the twin of this girl. And we're like, looking at this going, no, absolutely not. And, you know, it's what's the coincidence? And I remember when we took her out, I mean, the EMTs were crying. And the engine company that was coming to help us for the landing zone went on the turnpike the wrong way because the direction they were given by the dispatcher gave them the wrong mile marker. And by the time they got there, the chopper had to hover for 2 minutes. You know, any that possibly could have thrown a wrench into this plan did. We were driving back after this incident. We caught a nonsense alarm from somebody who burned popcorn in a microwave. And I remember coming back out and seeing the wheelman on the second due engine, who was out, actually was the engine for the landing zone. And he was just miserable. And I went up to see how he was, and he just exploded on me about, because I'm also the training officer for my department, and how we don't have any rules for critical incident stress, and what kind of trainer are you? You don't even think about this stuff. And he just stormed away. Well, obviously, his cry for help didn't go unheeded. I went back to headquarters and sat down with the chief and said, I'm calling in a team. And he called me a term used to describe the female anatomy. And I had said to him, well, you don't have to come to the meeting, but I'm calling him. And you can do what you want to me, but I'm calling him. And that night, I felt assistance, if you will, from that invisible hand, because I dreamed about that girl. I can tell you what she looked like. I can tell you her haircut. I can tell you the clothes she was wearing. And I can tell you, she said, I'm fine. And she said, thank you. So I think, straight along the lines of what we're talking about, we talk about the guidance during that incident or during any incident, but I think this extends so much further than just when the tones drop or when you're on the alarm, because I think to get through this, there has to be that help from above, from everything we do, from all the experiences we have from tour to tour to tour, to keep us moving, to keep us focused, to keep us calibrated, if you will, for the next 24-hour tour. When you come back and want to do this all over again, I think there has to be that. I think you have to believe that there is that invisible hand, if you will, that helps to keep you grounded and to keep you in that direction. And for whatever reasons they are, the things that we don't understand happen. And in this case, I can remember going through that whole day with that girl who passed away. I was just like, what could we have done faster? What could we have done better? If only the engine would have got there 5 minutes faster, and we could have, landed that chopper 5 minutes earlier, or if only we did this, if only we did that, or if we only had this, or we should have used that, and you can't help but second guess sometimes one of the things you do. But I think when it's all said and done, it's a part of what we do is based on what that higher power does for us, and it helps us. You have to, all the training in the world, although valid, you still have to have some help, some assistance.
Yeah, I agree totally, Mike. I'm glad there's no camera, because you're the first guest that ever made me shed a tear. That was
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that was a very powerful story. Yeah, in this conversation, I'm thinking of things that I've never thought about before, and I'm thinking about, when I say the invisible hand, solely about not working. I should have been working. Made a mutual. This happened, but I never thought about the other side of this, how we deal with the public, and sometimes things don't always go well. I know what's ironic is one day myself and Mike Champo were going out to do a drill. We do some stuff with the FDNY, and we were going out to film a drill. And for some reason, I said to Mike, I said, "Oh, I know that block." I said, we had this fire where we had a fatality, and that fire, out of all the fires I've been to, has probably bothered me the most, And he says, "Yeah, I was at that fire." I was like, "Really?" And what happened was, we were second due truck, and the long and the short of it was that I just couldn't get to the top floor fast enough. And this girl, I thought she was a young girl. She was only in her 20s. She wound up jumping out the window, and I could remember the whole scene so vividly. Like, you know, it was like a minor fire. There was a fight. Mike told me the whole story. He said there was a fight. The girl got one of the tenants that are having a party. She lit a basket up in the hallway. It took the hallway, but it was like a kind of a flash fire. I envisioned that this poor girl opened the door. She thought the world was ending. She turned around. Now this is after 9/11, obviously, so people are still fresh, thinking that, you know, anytime there's a fire, there's going to be a, you know, collapse or whatever. So she jumped. She went to the window. She broke the window and she jumped, and I could still see that bloody handprint where she broke the glass and held onto the wall. And I remember coming with the rig, and we couldn't get there fast enough. We had to go up this huge hill, and the rig just wasn't moving. And when we got to the block, I remember the people in the street saying, "Don't waste your time. She already jumped," you know. And I didn't want to hear it, you know. And when I got to the apartment door, and we opened it, you know, I saw, you know, I saw the bloody handprint, and I looked out the window and I saw her, and that's always haunted me, that we couldn't get there fast enough. And it was just a series of, you know, like her panic and just not getting that truck there fast enough. So, you know, stuff like that. You know, I guess that invisible hand gives us the faith to like, I wish I had a dream about her where she told me she was okay, because, you know, she was such a pretty girl. And I remember looking down and she was just like you know, a pile of bones, really, you know. And, you know, we see this stuff, and how do we have the wherewithal to come back the next set of tours and not lose it? I don't know. It's beyond me. There's got to be something up there that's helping us, because humanly, I don't think we could do this job with what we have to deal with.
No, I don't. I would agree. I don't think you can't have faith in this profession and be able to do this profession. You know, and there's a lot. I'm sure you met a lot of people who take this career as just a way to make the bills, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in your life that you've met that truly try to make this the profession that it is. And there's a delicate balance between the two. But one of the things that I've always seemed to stay consistent between both types of people is the reaction, if you will, when you get those ugly incidents, and how they process that. And there has to be some faith. I mean, when I called this critical incident team, and we met the next tour after the incident with the young girl, and you don't realize how many people you help when you reach out for this. I had originally done that for my tour, and I invited the EMS crew that was on the incident as well. And when we hosted the incident, we hosted it at my fire headquarters. The troopers that were there came. The flight nurse that was on that helicopter came. The ER attending physician came, who received the girl when she got there. And everybody had that story, and everybody needed that faith, and everybody needed to believe that, I don't know, maybe we just needed to believe that what we did was the best that we could. And we needed to believe that it was all right. And we needed to believe that we can still do this. And of course, I think one EMT, and I talked to him years later, that call, he made a different career choice. And that call was one of the driving moments. And I kick myself for that, to be quite honest with you, because I wish I knew then that he was contemplating leaving. And I think had I known that, I think I would have reached out to him and brought him into the inner circle that I have, that that I use both professionally and interfaith to keep moving. I don't think enough people realize that there has to be that connection. And the shame of it is the service lost a very, very competent member. So lots of the times I don't want to use the word preach, ironically, but I'm constantly on the forefront of this with my crew as well. Both from, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Hey, how's everybody? How's the family? How's everything? Summer vacations, kids graduating middle school, going on to high school, or, we all have our stressors. And there has to be avenues for all of us. And you can't rule out that connection to that higher power to be able to keep you righted, aligned with where you need to be.
Yeah.
It's not just hanging your gear on the rig at 7 a.m. and then hanging in your locker when you're done and forgetting about the place. Everybody says you forget about the place for 3 days. You don't. You just don't.
I had to deal with a similar situation. I guess it was probably 4 or 5 years ago. It actually made national news, this incident. And my district is pretty big, so I cover a good portion of let's say the Eastern Bronx, right? So I go from basically almost to the Triborough Bridge up to the Drogsneck Bridge in a sense, and as north as probably the Bronx River or whatever. So it's a good size area. And one of my houses that I have to visit is on the extreme end of the north, let's say the north west. All right, so I'm up there and I hear this call come in, and it was very ambiguous at first. It came in, I thought it was an EMS call, a medical call, and then they filled out the box. And sometimes as dispatchers, they get bad information. And so I was 20 minutes away anyway, so it doesn't matter what I did. But anyway, it turned out that they were a young couple. They weren't from New York. They had just moved to New York from somewhere up in the Northeast. And, they were living in this first floor apartment with their 2 young babies. One was maybe 2, the other one was a year old. They were both in their crib. And it was winter. So there was a mishap with the boiler, and the radiator blew and it filled the room with steam and killed both kids instantly. They were exposed to like very, very extreme temperatures and steam, and they were both in their crib sleeping. And my first 2 companies there were from my house that I'm stationed. And by the time I got there, the medics were already there, and they were taking the 2 kids out, and it was really, really horrific. It made national news. I mean, it was just, I knew this was going to be really bad, and my concern at this point was there was nothing we could do for those kids. They had died pretty much instantly. But my concern was now for my firefighters, because I know what it's like to experience that trauma, especially when it comes to kids. For some reason, when it comes to little kids, we have a tough time. And, I called, we have a counseling service unit, CSU. And I just got on the phone with them immediately. I said, you got to send the cavalry to the firehouse right now when these guys get back, because I put them out of service for the rest of the tour. And I made sure that those counselors were there. And it's such a different mindset from what we did maybe 30 years ago, 35 years ago, right? No one would have been thinking about the counseling unit. They would have been, we didn't even have a counseling unit. This only came about as a result of 9/11. So I don't know I don't know how we would have handled that. When I came on the job, I have a good idea. Probably would have involved some kind of refreshments, but
Yep.
That was the way you dealt with things. Just like it didn't happen and suck it up. And,
Yep.
And
those 3 magic words. I don't know how many times we've heard that in our careers. But yeah, I agree. There's and sometimes, you know, the unexplainable, or, you know, the just the actual occurrences in life. You know, I had a guy, you know, find out his wife was cheating on him while he was on shift. I mean, you know, if we forget that we have to take care of our own if we're going to take care of anybody else first. We got to take care of our own. We got to take care of our internal customer, if you will, before we worry about who's outside those four walls.
Yeah. So anyway, so Mike, you gave me a lot to think about. I have to tell you, normally I just think about the events themselves, like, you know, one-time events, like a rescue, a collapse, whatever. And now, you know, we're thinking, we've broadened our scope a little bit here, thinking about, you know, the invisible hand in every aspect of the fire service, not only just on scene, but behind the scenes. And tonight, I'm actually going to be interviewing Andy and Sue Farron and Nancy Carbone. And we're going to be talking about, and Brett Snow, we're going to be talking about, on Fire Engineering Radio, we're going to be talking about this whole PTSD. So that'll be tonight's episode. But Mike, I want to thank you for taking the time to be here with me today. This was a really, really exciting, you know, for me, this was a great episode. I'm not going to forget that story about that girl. That just, when you said that, it just was like a slug, you know. And I'm glad that you had that peace, though. You know, I'm glad that, you know, that's what God gives us. He gave you that solace. You know, I never got that from, you know, I never had closure with this woman that jumped out the window, and it still haunts me, you know. And I wish I had that. That's a gift. God gave you a gift, you know. So anyway,
yeah, I would agree. Just sometimes she still comes into my mind. Every extrication call I go on, she's still right in the front. But it just makes it does make it easier with time. You never forget it, but it makes it easier.
Yeah. So, all right, Mike. Well, I'm going to get on with my day. I'm training for my bike ride. I'm doing 2 big bike rides. I'm doing a ride from Naples to Ground Zero. We're coming in to the World Trade Center on 9/11. I'm riding with the brotherhoodride.com. If you want to give some support, just look me up, brotherhoodride.com. And then I'm doing a second ride, September 14th to the 18th, with the FDNY 343 ride for the Wounded Warriors. So if you want to look into that one too, it's easy to find. If you want to help us out, it's 2 great causes. We're helping Nancy Carbone with the Friends of Firefighters on the Brotherhood ride for guys that are suffering from PTSD. They do great work with the FDNY. So Mike, thanks again, and we'll be in touch. And with that, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks again, Chief. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Mike. Take care.